Guys, so the slides are visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then today we'll be going with the third part of Unit 1, right? So basically today we are going to discuss about the neoplastic agent or the anti-neoplastic agent. So can anybody tell what is the neoplasm actually? Anyone? What do you understand by the neoplasm? Anyone? This one. What is this? Okay, so no one knows. So what we are going to do, we are going to discuss this thing in the brief, right? So basically, when you look at your syllabus, we have the following category of anti-neoplastic agents, right? So these are the alkylating agents, these are the anti-metabolites, there are the antibiotics also. Then there are some plant products, and then we have some miscellaneous category, which basically consist of the inorganic compounds, right? So this is split in another thing, right? So we'll be discussing about all these five categories, right, in the syllabus. So first I'll be starting with what is the neoplasm, right? So am I audible and the things are coming, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, how many of you have heard about the cancer? Have you heard about the cancer?
Yes, sir.
So what is that thing? When we say we are talking about the cancer, what is cancer actually? Anyone?
सर एबनॉर्मल सेल ग्रोथ जब बहुत सारे सेल्स वो मास ऑफ सेल्स ग्रो होते हैं.
Exactly means uncontrolled division of cells, right? So basically, when we talk about the cancer or when we talk about the neoplasm, what is the important thing there, right? Basically, when we are talking about the drugs, we are actually targeting the cells, right? Whether it is a normal cell or whether it is a cancer cell, we are targeting that thing. We are targeting the cell, right? And that are the human cell only. For example, when we are using some antibacterial agents, right? Then that time what we are doing, we are actually targeting the bacteria. When we are using the antifungal agent, we are actually targeting the fungus, right? So basically, we have a distinction between the our body cells and those foreign cells like the bacteria or the fungi, right? But what happens when there are the cases of the neoplasm or the cancer? What happens actually? Both the cells have the same origin, right? So that is one of the major thing when we talk about the anti-neoplastic agents or anti-cancer agents, right? So I'll be discussing about that part, right? So basically, when we talk about the neoplasm means any new growth, right, which is occurring in the cells or the tissues, right? So basically an abnormal mass of tissues that forms when the cell grow and divide more than they should do or not die when they should. So basically what is happening in the neoplasm, see, when there is a cell, you all know about the cell, then there are the process of the karyokinesis. So basically in the karyokinesis, firstly what happens, the nucleus divides, right? There it is followed by the cytokinesis where the cell divides, right? And when the cell become mature, it get eventually died, right? It died, right? So how it dies, there are the programmed cell death. You might have heard about the apoptosis, you might have heard about the necropoptosis, right, or the necrosis, right? So basically there are also some cell death mechanism, right? But what happen in the cases of the cancer, there is an uncontrolled growth of the cell. Basically cells are growing and not dying, right? So if the cell will not die, what will happen, there will be an enormous rise in the cell number in the body. So that rise in the cell number, right, so that rise in the cell number is basically called as the neoplasm, right? So now neoplasm can be of two types. One, it can be of benign, right? Basically benign means, for example, if there is a cell growth in a particular area of a body, right? So that particular that cells will be remain confined to that particular area, that will not move from that area, right? So that is called the benign neoplasm, and the benign neoplasm are not the cancerous one, right? So this is the common thing. So basically, if they are localized in a particular area, they will be growing in that particular area only, right? For example, the second thing is the malignant neoplasm. So what is the malignant neoplasm? Malignant neoplasm means basically the cells that are growing uncontrollably in a particular area, but they have the power of a metastasis. For example, if they are growing in a particular area, for example, if I say they are growing in the lungs, right? So they have the metastasis power. They can move from to different organs or the different tissues in the body. So this is a major form which is actually fatal, right? This is actually responsible for the high mortality rate, this malignant form. And this malignant form of neoplasm is called the cancer, right? So now neoplasm basically have two types. One is the benign one and one is the malignant one. So benign one remain confined to a particular part and they are basically non-cancerous, right? But the malignant is have the tendency to evade or metastasize from one part to another in a body, right? And thus these are called the cancer, right? So the malignant neoplasm are called the cancer. This is the important thing, right? So see, this is the definition. So basically benign neoplasm may grow large but do not spread, right? So this is the important thing. They grow large but they do not spread into or evade nearby tissues or other part of the body. So they are remain confined to a single part only, right? They do not have the tendency to spread, right? So these are called the benign neoplasm. The second one is the malignant neoplasm, which can spread or invade to the nearby tissues, right? So this form is called the cancer or the tumor, right? So this is what we call the cancer or tumor. So basically the malignant neoplasm is called the cancer or tumor, right? So this is the thing. So now I'll be discussing a brief about what is actually the cancer, right? So you know this thing basically when we have some healthy cells, they actually divide, right? They actually divide, grow, and then die, right? But what happens when there is a mutation in the cell? There are some oncogenes that can get the mutated, right? You know that thing. So when there will be a mutation in DNA basically, right? Because the DNA is the fingerprint of the cell, and when there is a mutation in the cell, it will lead to the uncontrolled growth and the proliferation of the cell, leading to the neoplasm, right? It can be the benign or it can be the metastasis one, right? Or the malignant one, right? So this is the healthy cell division. So basically this is the cancer cell division. When there is a mutation, this cell growth is uncontrollable, right? So this is actually called the neoplasm, right? And depending upon the neoplasm, for example, if it is confining to a particular part or if it is spreading, it is termed as a cancer, right? So this is the thing. Now, various factor influences the cancer growth, right? There are various factors. For example, you might have heard about the angiogenesis, right? For example, these are the formation of the new blood capillaries. There are some growth factor enzymes, right? There are some growth factor enzymes which promote this division, right? So there are many factors which actually promote the tumor growth, right? So this is the thing. So if we look at the major cancer types which the world is suffering, so you might be knowing that the cancer is one of the major reason for the mortality, right? So if we talk about the cancer both in the females and the males, right? So in the male, basically the prostate cancer is one of the major cancer reported, right? This is as per the US data, right? So the prostate cancer is one of the major cancer in males, which is followed by the lung cancer, right? And when we talk about the female, the breast cancer is one of the major cancer subtype, right? Found in the female, right? So this is the general thing, which is quite alarming also, right? So now how to treat the cancer or how to combat the cancer, this is one of the major problem, right? So what we have in the therapy, we have some radiotherapy. Might have heard about, you have heard about the surgery is also the option to treat the cancer. And then when we are in the pharmacy field, when we are dealing with the medicinal chemistry, so there is the chemotherapy. to treat the cancer, right? So now, how these drugs came into the picture, basically the anti-cancer chemotherapy, how this came into the picture. So basically the first time when the anti-cancer drugs were used were in the 1940s, right? These were the followed by the alkylating agent, right? So at that time, these drugs were called the traditional anti-cancer agents or the traditional anti-cancer drugs. So what you understand by the traditional anti-cancer agents and now the drug which we are using, the modern anti-cancer agent or the targeted anti-cancer agent, can anybody differentiate between this thing? What are the traditional anti-cancer agents? Right, I'll be explaining. See, what happens in the earlier era, I'm just talking about the traditional anti-cancer agent. So what happened during that time, the people were using the alkylating agent, anti-metabolite, these antibiotics or the cisplatin type of molecule, right? So what was happening that time? See, basically when we are treating the cancer, right, as I said earlier also, basically we are targeting the cell. We are targeting the human cell, right? Up now the human cell have the same morphology, right? So whether we talk about the cancer cell or whether we talk about the normal cell, they have the same origin and the same morphology, right? Agree? Agreed? Both the cells are same. Guys, do you agree that both the cancer cells and the normal cells are the same, have the same origin and the same anatomy?
Yes, sir.
Right? So now, basically, if they have the same origin or the same anatomy, what will happen? What will happen actually? The molecule which we are taking as a drug will affect both the cells. It will affect the cancer cell and it will affect the normal cell also. So what will happen? There will be some toxicities. There will be some toxicities like the leukopenia, anemia, impaired healing. There are many type of tetrogenesis. Right? There are many toxicities because the same drug, same traditional drug is affecting both the normal cell and the cancer cell. So this is the major problem. So what the scientist did or what the medicinal chemist did or what the oncologist did, they actually tried to find some of the major thing which are present in the cancer cell but are not present in that much amount in the normal cell, right? So basically they have understand the different expressed protein present in the cancer cell versus the normal cell. So they found that there are some of the proteins like the growth factors, the kinases what we called, or we say the there are other targets also like the histone deacetylases, topoisomerases, which are more expressed in the cancer cell than they are present in the normal cell. So what they did, they actually developed some targeted anti-cancer therapies, right? So the targeted anti-cancer therapies means they will be particularly targeting a particular target in the overexpressed cell, which is the cancer cell, right? For example, they have used the imatinib and the gefitinib, right? So basically these are the kinase inhibitor or the growth factor inhibitors, right? So but what is the problem of these drugs is the efficacy. When we are giving these drugs, the cancer cell become resistance to it, right? It gets resistance toward these targeted cancer therapies, right? So the efficacy and the resistance is one of the major issues in the targeted cancer therapies. Then to overcome this thing, what the scientists are recently doing, they are making some molecule that have the ability to target two or more than two oncogenic proteins, right? So they are actually making some dual or multi-targeted inhibitor. So these inhibitors are currently in the clinical trial, right? And their efficacy is still awaited, right? So these are the new things. So basically in your syllabus, what we have the traditional anti-cancer agents, right? So we'll be dealing about the traditional anti-cancer agent throughout your syllabus on the anti-neoplastic agent, right? So this is the thing. So as I told earlier, alkylating agents were the first synthetic therapies used to treat the cancer, right? So they were the first synthetic therapies, right? So now, if you know about the chemistry, right? If you know about the chemistry, when I am saying alkylating agent, what do you mean by the alkyl group? Anyone? Anyone? What is the alkyl? What is alkyl group? Anyone? What do you understand by the alkylating group? What is the alkyl group actually? For example, when I say methyl, ethyl, propyl, butyl, what are these things?
The carbon chains with hydrogen.
These are basically the alkyl group, right? So basically these are the alkyl group, methyl, ethyl, propyl, butyl. Now, what is the chemical nature of these alkylating groups? Whether they are the electrophiles or whether they are the nucleophiles? Anyone? Very simple question of the organic chemistry. What are the alkylating agents? Whether they contain a positive charge or whether they contain a negative charge? They contain a positive charge, right? So basically their nature will be the, what will be their nature? They will be acting as the electrophile. They will be acting as what? They will be acting as the electrophile, and these compounds react with the electron rich atoms, right? So the electrophiles means electron loving species. So what will be the electron rich species? They will be the nucleophilic centers in the biological molecules, right? Basically the DNA, right? So basically the alkylating agents are the compound that react with the electron rich atoms. What we call them? We call them nucleophilic centers in the biological molecules to form the covalent bonds, right? So this is the basic mechanism how the alkylating agent work, right? So now I'll be just going into the basic, then I'll be just representing this thing with the figure. So alkylating agents exert their cytotoxic effect by the transfer of their alkyl group, right, to various cellular constituents. So alkylation of DNA, right? So in the DNA, we means that in the DNA there are some nitrogenous bases, right? The purines and the pyrimidines. And in the purines and the pyrimidines, they are basically made up of what? They are made up of nitrogen, right? When we look at the what is the heterocycle or the what is the heteroatom present in those purine and the pyrimidine, that is nitrogen. So when we talk about the nitrogen, nitrogen itself is the nucleophilic center, right? Because it have a lone pair of electron, right? So now what will happen? These electrophile, these alkylating agents will be targeting those nitrogenous bases or the that nitrogen atom or that basically the nucleophilic center, right, to bind with them to form a covalent bond and to disrupt their what, either the replication or the transcription. So I'll be just showing you with this with the figure, right? So the let me open more thing, right? For example, see, now this is the guanosine molecule or the guanine, right? So basically the major site of alkylation within the DNA is the N7th position of the guanine. So this is very important question for your GPAT also. So basically they ask you about the exact position where the alkylation is occurring, right? So the importantly the alkylation, the major alkylating site is the N7th position of the guanine molecule, right? So but there are fair amount chances that the other bases, other nitrogenous bases can also get affected by the alkylation, right? So now, right, so now you already know about the nitrogenous bases in the DNA, right? So they are basically of two types, right? One is the purine and one is the pyrimidine, right? You all know this thing, right? So basically, when we talk about the purine and the pyrimidine, then again they are subclassified into adenine, thymine, cytosine, and the guanine, right? So this guanine is the major molecule or the major site where the alkylating agents act, right? So this is the common thing. So I'll be discussing this thing also. So these are other sites. For example, see, here we have some different nucleophilic centers, right, in the cytosine, in the guanine, or in the adenine. So they can have one nucleophilic site or they can have more than one nucleophilic site, right, where the alkylating agent can act, right? So now what will happen when an alkylating agent will act on this nitrogenous basis? What will happen actually, right? So now, for example, this is the nucleophilic site and this is again a nucleophilic site in the nitrogenous base. So if a alkylating agent is acting upon this thing, it is acting upon the nitrogenous basis. So what will happen? What will happen? Do you know about DNA? You know about DNA, something about the DNA? For example, this is the DNA. This is made up of the nitrogenous bases, right? A pair with the T and C pair with the G, right? Cytosines pair with the guanine and the thymine pairs with the adenine. You all know this, right? So basically what happened when this alkylating agent make a bond with these nitrogenous bases, what will happen? Anyone? There will be an formation of covalent bond, right, between these nitrogenous bases base pairs, right? So if there will be a formation of covalent bond, what will happen? This DNA will not be able to unwrap, right, or unwind, right, to form the RNA, right? So basically these are the hydrogen bonds, right? Hydrogen bonds are easy to break, right? But when there will be a formation of the covalent bond by the action of the alkylating agent, what will happen? This bond, this covalent bond formed by the alkylating agent will not able to break, right? Because they are the strong bond, right? So this DNA will not be able to undergo the process of the replication, or nor it will be able to go the process of the transcription, right? So when the molecule will be failing to undergo the replication or the transcription, what will happen? The desired proteins will not be formed, right? And when the desired proteins will not be formed, the cell will eventually die, right? So this is the common mechanism how the alkylating agents act, right? So any questions on this? Any questions, any doubts if you're not getting this point? Because this is the foundation step, right? So you may ask the queries or the questions if you are just having some trouble here, right? So basically I'll just go back. So we were discussing like this. We were saying there are the nitrogenous bases which have what? Which have the nucleophilic centers, right? Right. We have the where the where the electrophile can act. So basically these are the electron-rich species, right? Or we can call them the nucleophilic centers, right? So basically when the alkylating agents are acting upon that, they are actually forming the covalent bond. So basically these two, for example, the base pair is being flanked by this alkylating agent, right? So this alkylating agent is acting this side and this side, right? Because here is an high electron density, right? So what is happening? What is happening? They are actually forming this DNA helix, right? If they are forming this, if they are making this DNA helix strong, what this mean? This means that this DNA cannot get unwrapped to form the RNA, or it cannot go the process of the replication or the transcription, right? So if it is not going the process of the replication or the transcription, it will eventually die because it will not be able to synthesize some essential protein, right? So this is how the alkylating agents work, right? So this is the thing. See, for example, this is the example. This is an alkylating agent, right? It is an alkylating agent. So basically what it is doing, it is forming an inter-strand cross-linking between the two base pairs. For example, the guanine in this case, right? So it is reacting with the N7 position of the guanine and it is forming a strong covalent bond, right? This is actually forming an inter-strand cross-linking or the covalent bond. So what will happen if the covalent bond will formed? This DNA replication or the transcription will not go, right? So basically what we call the central dogma of molecular biology will not exist, right? And eventually the cell will die because of this cross-linking by the alkylating agent, right? So this is the important thing. Now the brief history, I'll be just talking about some brief history, what we mean by how the alkylating agents are first used. So basically the alkylating agents, you might have heard about the mustard gas, right? Which was actually used in the World War I, right? So this mustard gas was used during the World War I, and this mustard gas was very pungent because this have a sulfur, right? Then what the scientists have done, they have actually replaced the sulfur with the nitrogen to develop the first alkylating agents to treat the cancer. And these, when these sulfur mustard were replaced by the nitrogen, these were called as the nitrogen mustard, right? So these were the first modern cancer chemotherapies, or they come under the traditional chemotherapy, anti-cancer therapy, right? So basically when we talk about the alkylating agent, we have five types of alkylating agents, right? We have the nitrogen mustards, right? We have the alkyl sulfonates, right? We have the nitrosoureas, we have ethylenamines, we have a triazines, right? So basically in your syllabus, you just have the nitrogen mustards, right? There are 4 drugs in your syllabus in the category of nitrogen mustard. You have the alkyl sulfonate. There is only a 1 drug in your syllabus. And then you have the ethyl enamines, right? So you have only a single drug in your syllabus, right? So we'll be discussing about this category, and this category for your syllabus, right? And we'll be leaving this nitrosoureas and the triazine, right? But you should remember that there are some other categories also belonging to the alkylating agents, right? So now we'll be going basically to a basic chemistry of these alkylating agents, right? So I know I have already told you that the alkylating agents are the compound that actually reacts with the electron rich atoms, right? Electron rich atoms. So what could be the electron rich atoms? Basically the electronegative atoms, because the electronegative atoms will have the maximum number of the electrons, right? So they are called as the electron rich atoms, right? So basically in the presence in the biological molecules. So the important biological molecules where this alkylating agents acts are the DNA, and the important site is the N7th of guanine, right? So this is the common thing, right? Now, traditionally these agents are divided into 2 types, right? So we are talking about the alkylating agents. So now basically when we are dealing with the chemistry, these alkylating agents are divided into 2 types, right? So the first one are those compounds that react directly with the biological molecules, means they are the active form of the drugs, they are the active form of the alkylating agent that directly react with the biological molecules, basically the electron rich centers of the biological molecules, right? This is the first type. The second types are those which actually first form the reactive intermediate, means as such these are the prodrugs, right? So these are the product, these alkylating agents are the product. They first form a reactive intermediate which then react with the biological molecule, right? So now when we talk about the alkylating agent, there are 2 categories of drug: the drug which are active in themselves, right? And the second category which are the prodrugs, which undergoes the metabolism and then they form a reactive intermediate, right? So this is very important. We have the 2 categories. One are the drug that are active itself, right? And the second thing, the drugs are the prodrugs, right? So the prodrug mean the drug which are not active as such, but once they undergo the metabolism, they get converted to the active form, right? So now these drugs, these types of drugs are termed as SN1 and SN2 respectively. This SN1 and SN2 does not mean your reactions, right? What you have learned in the organic chemistry, SN1 reaction or the SN2 reaction, this does not comply with that thing, right? For example, those that react directly with the biological molecules are said to possess the SN1 type of mechanism, and those molecules that actually that are actually the prodrug and then they form an active molecule are known to exhibit the SN2 mechanism, right? So we'll be discussing about this thing. So this has nothing to recall from your SN1 and SN2 mechanism in the organic chemistry, right? So this is the thing, right? So basically these terms are referring to the kinetics of the reaction, how the reaction is proceeding, right? So I'll be just showing you some example. For example, this is SN1 type of alkylation and this is the SN2 type of alkylation. So what is happening in the SN1 alkylation is the rate of reaction of the SN1 agent is dependent only on the concentration of the reactive intermediate, right? So basically this molecule, for example, this is the alkyl halide, right? And if the alkyl halide is will be breaking, means it will break, what will happen? This is, suppose this is the prodrug, right? So the R, the alkyl group is the active group in the molecule. So basically the halogen will leave, it will leave in the negative form. It will be going in the negative charge because all the halogens, if you know, the fluorine, chlorine, they all possess the negative charge, right? So this will form a intermediate carbocation R positive or the electrophile, right? Now this electrophile will react with the nucleophilic center or the nucleophile of that biological molecule. For example, we are saying the electron rich centers in the biological molecules, right? So this is the thing. This is the SN1 type of reaction where the molecule is first converting into the reactive species or the reactive carbocation or the reactive electrophile, and then this reactive electrophile or the carbocation is reacting with the nucleophile of the biological molecule, right, to form a bond, right? So this is the SN1 type of alkylation, right? So basically it will depend upon the intermediate carbocation concentration or the electrophile concentration, right? The second type is the SN2 alkylation, right? So this is the SN2 alkylation. So basically the SN2 alkylation, what will happen? The nucleophile will attack at this center, electron deficient center, right? So basically this is an electropositive or the carbocationic side. So basically the nucleophile is attacking here and then this X is leaving, right? Then this X or the halogen is leaving to form the basically this nucleophile is getting the alkylated, right, by this carbocation, right? So in this there is nothing, there is the drug is not getting metabolized into the intermediate carbocation, but the nucleophile, the biological nucleophile is itself attacking this molecule and the X is leaving to form a, so that this biological molecule gets the or basically it undergoes the alkylation, right? So this is the thing. This is the thing. So the rate of reaction of an SN2 agent is dependent upon the concentration of the alkylating agent and of the molecule which with it reacting. So basically this reaction will depend upon both the drug concentration and the concentration of the nucleophile, right? So this is the second mechanism how the alkylating agent will be acting, right? So the concentration will be depending upon both the nucleophile of the biological molecule as well as the drug concentration, right? So this is the thing, right? So why we need to understand this SN1 and SN2 alkylation? Simple. This distinction has important implication in understanding the cellular and molecular pharmacology of specific alkylating agents, right? So we'll be discussing ki how this SN1 and SN2 alkylation affects the what? The pharmacology or the outcome of the biological response of these drugs, of these alkylating agents, right? So for example, we'll be discussing this thing also in the detail. The nitrogen mustard and the nitrosoureas are the example of SN1 agents, whereas the busulfan is an SN2 agent. So I'll be discussing this thing in the chemistry also when we'll be discussing the individual drugs, right? So this is all the basic thing about the neoplasm, and we have just something about the alkylating agents, right? So this is the thing. So if you have now any queries, any doubts, you may ask. Anyone, any questions, any queries, doubts on the neoplasm, anti-neoplastic agents or the mechanism of this thing? So if you have no doubt, then what I'll do, I'll just summarize the thing what we have done today, right? So we have basically dealt today with the anti-neoplastic agents, right? So I have just told you something about the neoplasm. So what is that neoplasm? So neoplasm is the formation of new cell or the new tissues, right? So now when there is an uncontrolled cell division and differentiation, right, it can lead to the two different form of the neoplasms, right? One is the malignant and one is the benign one, right? So the benign form of neoplasm remain confined to that particular area where there is a uncontrolled growth of cells, right? So basically it is remaining confined there. And the second, so this form, the benign form, is non-cancerous. The second form is the metastasis or the malignant form, right? So the malignant form basically spread the cells which are dividing, they spread from one part of the body to the nearby areas, right? So this malignant neoplasm is termed as cancer, right? So this is the common definition, right? Then what we have some drugs actually to treat this type of neoplasm or the cancer, right? So what we have some traditional chemotherapy, right? Then we have some targeted chemotherapy, and then we have the multi-targeted chemotherapy, right? So the traditional chemotherapy have some major problems, right? So what the traditional chemotherapy have the problem, they is not able to differentiate between a normal cell and the cancer cell, right? The traditional chemotherapy like the alkylating agent, anti-metabolites, your antibiotics, or your molecule like the cisplatin, they are not able to differentiate between a normal cell and the cancer cell, right? So there will be n number of side effects and adverse drug reactions, right? Even the chances of secondary cancer will be very high when we are using the traditional anti-cancer agents. Then there came the targeted therapy. So targeted therapies, what they are doing, they are actually exploiting some of the overexpressed proteins in the cancer cells, which are not present in the normal cell, right? So what is the benefit of doing this? So basically they can selectively kill the cancer cell without harming much to the normal cell, right? So this is the second thing. And now there are the multi-targeted inhibitor, because there are some problems like the efficacy and the resistance, and there are n number of hallmarks of the cancer. So there are now coming the dual targeted or the multi-targeted therapies, right? Then what we have discussed about the alkylating agents, right? The alkylating agents are the first thing that are in your syllabus. So basically again, they are what? They are the traditional anti-cancer agents, right? So when we are talking about the traditional anti-cancer agents, they will again not be able to differentiate between the cell. But now when we are talking about actually the alkylating agent, right? Alkylating means alkyl group means methyl, ethyl, propyl, butyl, anything, right? CS3 type of thing, or CnH2n plus 1, right? If you go with the general formula, right? So now what they are going to do, they are basically having what? They are deficient of electrons, right? All these alkyl groups are deficient of electron. They have a very less electron. They are deficient of the electron. So where they will react, where they will attack the electron rich centers, right, in the biological molecules. So what could be those electron rich centers? These could be the nitrogens present in the DNA, right? So now if you know about the DNA, there are four major types of nitrogenous bases. The two major subtype are the purine and the pyrimidine. Then on the basis of their division, we have the adenine, cytosine, thymine, and the guanine, right? So we have also discussed that the guanine and seventh nitrogen present at the seventh position, is one of the most explored site for these alkylating agents, right? So this is the thing. Then we have discussed about the mechanisms, right? We have discussed these alkylating agents are basically of two types. One, which are active as such, and they get directly reacted with that what we call the electropositive centers in the biological molecules. And the second are those molecules which are prodrugs, right? What they do, they first get active, right? They first get undergo the metabolism to become the active species, and those active species then react with the biological macromolecules, with the nucleophilic centers of the biological macromolecules, right? So this was the two things. Then what we have discussed about the SN1 and the SN2 mechanism, pertaining to these alkylating agents, right? So what is happening in the SN1 reaction? In the SN1 reaction, the molecule is first going into the metabolism where it is forming a carbocation, right? In the SN1 reaction, the alkylating agent is first forming the carbocation, which is actually reacting with the nucleophilic center or the electron rich center of the biological macromolecule, right? The second thing was what we discussed was SN2 mechanism, right? So in the SN2 mechanism, what is happening? The nucleophile of the biological macromolecule is attacking the alkylating agent, and the halogen or the leaving group is going, and there is a formation and there is an alkylation of that biological molecule, right? So basically the SN1 reaction depends upon the concentration of the carbocation formed, and the SN2 reaction depends upon the both the drug concentration as well as the nucleophile concentration. So this was the thing what we have done today, and tomorrow we'll be starting with the individual drugs, right? So if anyone have any doubts, queries or questions, they may ask now. Anyone? So if you do not have any questions or any doubts, so I'm just canceling this class, right? So thank you for joining. You can just go through the slides or you can just go to through the recording. And if you have some doubts, you may just present them before me tomorrow in the tomorrow class, right? So thank you for joining.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.